Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our presentation put on by the Creative Writing for Entertainment Bachelor of Fine Arts program at Full Sail University. My name is Susan Albersart. Thank you. And I am one of the instructors here at Full Sail, and I would like to introduce you to a couple of my colleagues and buddies. First of all, Carol Bernatti is not only one of the best teachers on the planet, but she is also one of the most loving people I know. Welcome, Carol. Yay! Yeah, go sit over there. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Tom Lucas. He is one of the most creative people I've ever met in a truly original, bizarro kind of way. He is also one of the kindest people on the planet. And it is my privilege and pleasure to work with both of you on a daily basis.
Yes.
So, I'm one of those people who loves writers. I respect their process, and I find it easy to empathize with their anxiety in making the right choices. And one of those most important choices is the idea that you want to spend months, maybe years working on. And I've seen it over and over again that writers, they like, is my idea good enough? Is it the right idea? I don't want it to live in my computer forever. I want somebody to produce it, right? Isn't that the goal, is to get it produced? So that's what we're going to talk about today, okay? And I want to start with, where do ideas come from, okay? How many of you think of your best ideas in the shower? Oh yeah, me too. Also road trips. You know, road trips are a great idea to come up with ideas. You guys, where do you get your best ideas? Jogging?
Doing yard work.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
At red lights. I would say is the other one.
Oh, yeah. You never know when you're going to get a good idea, okay? And if you don't write it down or put it somewhere where you can access it in the future, you won't remember it, okay? So that's the first thing we want to talk about is, how do you capture them? Where do they come from, and how can you write them? I mean, how can you actually keep track of them, okay? So the political climate is kind of crazy today, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, that's a great idea for ideas. A great place to find ideas is political, religious, and social commentary, okay? Those are hot-button issues that people are always interested in, and there's always two sides. There's always conflict in any of those areas. Think of the great American writer John Steinbeck. He wrote about the Depression because he really wanted to stick it to the greedy bastards that were making money off of the American people. And that's what he wrote about. And he is one of our greatest American authors. Think Stephen King. He dreams up his ideas. Anybody ever see the movie Misery? Yeah, Misery, you know what it's about, right? Yeah, that was a dream that somebody captured a writer and skinned him and made a book cover out of their skin. I mean, it was like the grossest thing, but he's the king of war, right?
There's one other aspect to that book, which is about his battle with addiction. And so the Bates character in the film is supposed to represent his addiction and what it did to his writing and how it imprisoned him and all that kind of good stuff too. So that's another thing to kind of pull that in, is your personal experience, right? We all are on this journey of life, and things happen to us every day, big and small. And most writers I know, half the characters they create are based on people, positive or negative. So that's kind of a warning if you're a friend with a writer, right? Everything is silently being documented and could show up in the future, but certainly observing the world and all the things that are going on in the world, and then what is your response to that, and what can you do with a story to either carry a message that you want to project or simply comment. I write a lot of satire, so I'm not necessarily trying to change the world or illuminate anything. I'm really just kind of trying to set it on fire most of the time. So, that's kind of where I come from.
So how many people here keep a journal next to their bed? Yeah, good for you. Yeah, you got to remember your dreams. And that's the only way you can remember your dreams, is to write them down.
How about your phone? Do you type notes into your phone?
Yeah,
or
notes on the phone. Yeah, that's another great idea.
Things like that. Cool.
Okay, so went over to my sister's house one night for dinner, and our minister was there. And I was told before he showed up that I had to be on my best behavior. Okay, so that meant I couldn't cuss. I couldn't say anything that was, off color. And I'm like, okay, I won't do that. But anyway, he had a little notebook in his pocket. And every once in a while, he'd take it out and he'd write notes in this notebook throughout the whole evening. And I finally said to him, what are you writing in your notebook? And he said, well, I'm trying to come up with ideas for my sermon on Sunday. And I'm like, oh my God, you're not going to talk about us, are you? Right? It just was horrible to think that. He said, oh, no. They're concepts. They're just ideas that come out of nowhere. And he said, if I don't write them down, I won't remember them. So imagine if you were a minister and you had to write an hour sermon every week. The ideas that go in and out of your mind are important to capture. So whatever you can do to capture those ideas and write them down, do it. Okay, so another place that ideas come from is making connections between things. So for example, Suzanne Collins, one of my favorite writers, today current contemporary writers, wrote the Hunger Games series. And she came up with that idea by putting two connections together. She thought about, she was watching, I guess, The Bachelorette on television, right? And then she was also seeing images of the Iraq War. And she kind of merged them together and came up with the Hunger Games. So that's another way to come up with an idea. And you don't want to settle for the first idea, do you? What idea do you want to go for?
The not settling for the first idea, like something that I kind of put out online just the other day was, I was like 40,000 words into a manuscript, and I just tore it up, basically. Because although the idea was there, the execution, at least in the way that I wanted to execute the story, it was just not happening, and I was going over it. What can I say? What can I do? And ultimately, it'll be better for it.
Right.
Kind of sucks because that was like 4 or 5 months of whenever I had time to write. Making myself write. But that's a part of the process too. Ideas are cheap currency, really. Remember your microphone there, Carol. Tell us about ideas a little bit.
My ideas come from the real world. I don't use my phone. I don't get my ideas off the internet. I leave the house, no phone, no nothing, just me and my iPod and all my amazing music. And I blow my own mind with my amazing musical taste because it's on shuffle. And I pay attention while I'm jogging. And that's where my last 3 stories came from the real people. You got to look at the real people. And then when you're writing something from your perspective only you can write that story. You know what I mean? That's a story only you can write. If you write what you know, that's it. No one else can write that story. So when they say, write what you know, trust me.
There's something I'd like Carol to talk about real quick, too. So Carol has a wonderful script, which actually won a Final Draft Award, yeah?
Yes.
And Oliver Stone presented you with that award, right?
Go, Carol.
And it is a story that comes out of your family, right? So what's the deal with the script? And how did you take your real life experience and... Because it seems to me from what you've shared, you didn't really have to do much. You just had to kind of remember, right? But anyway.
All right. I wanted a copy of the new Final Draft years ago, and I couldn't afford it. And Final Draft has their annual international big break, I'm still waiting for my big break. But so I submitted my screenplay, and they said the first 500 people got a copy of the new final draft. And they had 4,000 submissions that year. And the next thing I know, I got a call saying, you placed in the final 10, and you're the only girl. By the way, ladies, no title pages, you know? They don't allow any title pages in screenwriting competitions because they're biased against females, and they admit this. So, no title pages. So all of my feedback from all the judges came to him. Here is a writer who's found his voice. He cracked me up. He. So when they called me up on stage, I'm on stage with 9 guys, and Oliver Stone's looking at me like, and he's looking at the names on the list. And finally, he saw my name and said, Carol, and everyone started laughing because I'm the only girl. No, I'm Robert from the UK. But the reason Oliver Stone said he liked that script is he had never heard anything like it. And it's a story in my family that we used to tell during the holidays about my stupid boy cousins on Long Island in the 70s stealing patio furniture for the mafia on Staten Island, who was my Uncle Jimmy. And like Tony Soprano, he would never get his own precious son involved. He would go to Christopher, the nephew. So those were the nephews on Long Island. So one night, my cousin Vincent's visiting me from New York. My old boss, Blair Witch Project writer-director Ed Sanchez, was visiting, and he said to Vincent, and this is how the whole thing started, are you the one whose father was in the mafia? And he goes, no, that's my Uncle Jimmy. And he says, cuz, remember when he made me steal all that patio furniture? And Ed goes, what? And I go, oh, don't start, Vincent. Nobody wants to hear that. And Ed goes, no, everybody wants to hear that. And I go, oh, please, no, who would want to hear about my stupid cousin? Anyway, he goes, Carol, you have to write this. And I wrote the short first, and I sent it to Ed, and then he said, now give me the feature. And all I did was tell the truth, okay? I didn't write any of it. I told the truth. That is the key to your success as a writer. Tell the truth, even if it hurts. And I told the truth about my cousins. All of them are flawed, so the first thing you do is what? You reveal the flaw. My cousin Frankie has a comb for every day of the week. You can't write this stuff, okay? This is what I mean. Like, I couldn't have come up with that in a million years. And he gives up the combs by the end of the movie. And my cousin Vincent was afraid of the Verrazano. He still, to this day, won't cross the Verrazano Bridge. So when they had to drive the truck or the hot wicker to Staten Island, he bails out and takes the ferry, okay? It was based on my cousins, and I just channeled them. I tell my students, listen to your characters. Don't tell them what to say. Don't write dialogue for them. The characters already know who they are. They're not there to serve your story. They're there to serve themselves. So all I did was channel my dopey cousins and word for word, because I grew up with them. And that's how I wrote that script, and it turned out pretty funny. We had a table read at my house, and it was pretty hilarious. But again, I don't feel like I wrote this. I channeled it. And I've written screenplays before, and they were nice and clean and neat. This is the only one that sounded like me, though. This was the only one I felt like, was me. I wasn't trying to solve all the world's problems. I was just writing about my stupid cousins, who I love. So that was where my idea came from.
It's a hilarious script, and I'm waiting to see it.
Me
I
too.
really want to see this.
So
Me
that's
too.
another place. Your crazy families. You write about them, but change their names, because you don't want to get in trouble. Also, write about what you're passionate about. Going back to what you were saying about giving up on your story, maybe you just weren't passionate enough about it, that you really wanted to tell the story. And because you have to stay, the passion's got to stay there long enough for you to complete it. And sometimes it takes months to complete a feature-length screenplay or a book or whatever. It takes a long time to complete it, so you got to be passionate. Just always remember that somebody thought Sharknado was a good idea. So, you never know where those ideas are going to come from. Let's see. Index cards, journals, notes in your phone, and an idea box. Those are places you can capture the ideas. When you sit down to write, these ideas are going to help you deal with writer's block. And Carol, you had some great ideas about writer's block, about how to overcome it.
First of all, I drive my students crazy because there's no such thing as writer's block, okay? It drives me crazy. I can't write. I have writer's block. It's like, okay, I'm not going to teach today. I have teacher's block. A doctor's not going to perform surgery. He has doctor's block. It was an excuse for some lazy writer years ago, to just not write because he was afraid. See, I think it's all about fear. Okay, fear is going to generate every success and every failure in your life. And I believe writer's block is nothing but fear. So I give my students 4 remedies for writer's block. 1, pay attention. And you think, well, I pay attention. No, you don't. Okay, pay attention. And I don't mean in class. Well, yes, I mean in class, but I mean out there. Okay, get off of this stuff. And get off of this thing. Okay, the ideas are not there. You got to bring them to that thing. Get out there and look at the real people. Look at the real world. You'd be surprised. So pay attention. I have a great paying attention story, but it might take too long, so I won't even go into that. Another remedy, short assignments. Just announcing I'm going to write a screenplay is paralyzing. Short assignment. Start small. Another, tell the truth. We've already talked about that. It's always the answer. And the other one, and it's helped me throughout my career at Nickelodeon, Animal Planet, Jim Henson. Showbiz is a crazy world. A lot of frenemies, a lot of crazy makers, but a lot of amazing people, like right here. Okay, keep your sense of humor. Keep your sense of humor, you see how easy it is to write. So those are my remedies. Pay attention, short assignments, tell the truth, sense of humor. And you'd be surprised how you start writing. I don't believe that writer's block exists. I think it's loneliness, regret. I think it's shame. I think it's childhood baggage. I think, it's all those demons that we all have. That's right. It's fear of looking stupid. But if you're not afraid to look stupid, miracles happen. Trust me. Okay? Miracles happen. Every one of my friends the Blair Witch guys were not afraid to look stupid when they spent their last $35,000 and maxed out their credit cards and second mortgaged their houses. They didn't have Kickstarter, and everyone thought they were stupid. Well, who's stupid now? So again, it's all about fear. So writer's block, just don't be afraid. Accept the fact that you're going to be afraid. You know what I mean? You're going to be afraid. So I learned to carry it with me. I know that sounds weird. Every month when I got to get in front of a new class, I'm afraid. And I know it. I'm not going to pretend I'm not, but I'm going to put it over here where I can't see it. I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys, but you're all afraid. So just don't fight it. Bring it with you and just go with it. And it'll blow your mind. Don't be afraid of the fear.
So I have a few thoughts to add to that, right? Fear can be good because it means you care, right? So there is that, and it also gets you running forward. Absolutely. So that's also good. But I mean, everyone has sort of their own creative process, what maybe inspires them for a particular story. I've had moments where I'm listening to some music and that particular piece of music creates a visual in my mind, and before I know it, a story has kind of wrapped around it. But so I started writing as a professional writer, and I could say that because I got a paycheck every week, although it was very small, as a film reviewer at a small Detroit newspaper, right? So my introduction to writing really was as a journalist. And what that meant was assignments and deadlines. And I became very hardwired for that very early on. Now, I'm not a word sketcher. I don't go to Starbucks and find a really conspicuous table and start typing, with a little pork pie hat on, right? So everyone can see that I'm writing, right? Because if you watch me writing, it's a lot of angry faces, a lot of the time, because it's work, right?
And you can't pull your hair out.
Yeah, I can. This is what acceptance looks like, people. Just so you know, you can just think of me, right? But so I'm not a blank page. Oh, I'm just going to write today, just whatever energy comes through the room, and I'm going to write. That's cool if it's your process, but the blank page to me is the most restrictive thing ever. If you give me an assignment, like they said, you're going to go cover this film or you're going to go interview this person, now I have something that I can wrap my creativity around. I have a mission, right? And so sometimes that's intrinsic. You have something to say, something you want to comment on, as I said earlier. Or other times, and what I recommend to all my writer friends or creatives is look for calls. Look for calls for submissions. Look for competitions. Look for contests. look for opportunities to have a creative anchor. There's a cool one. I've seen flyers around campus right now. It's about diversity in Orlando. It's a little documentary type thing where you make a 3 to 5 minute documentary about someone in Orlando that shows the diversity of our cultures here. They're helping the filmmakers by giving them certain people to work with from the community, right? So now you have, you don't have to be like, I don't have any ideas, I just don't know. Now you have a very specific thing. I am going to tell this person's story. And then you can tease it out of it. So I never just sit down to write without intent or purpose. So sometimes, although I think it is important to write every day, especially when you're first starting out and build those muscles, sometimes it'll be a few weeks before I write anything in particular. But then I will see, like there was a Universal Monsters anthology, and they did a call for stories, and I just had to be in it,
Of course.
Yeah, Frankenstein, Dracula, werewolf. And the cover of it, they did the Breakfast Club poster, but it's all the Universal monsters. It's very fun. And so then I had something to really work on, and I had a deadline, which helps you create an internal timeline for when this thing is going to be done, because that's the other part of it too.
It would never
And it
finish
goes
without
to
the deadline.
The passion part that Susan mentioned is that now it needs to be done at this time, so it can't wander. How many people have half-written or half-edited things on their computers in this room? Okay? Because you didn't have a target date for it. So where's the pressure? As students, you have assignment due dates, so that's really helpful, but you shouldn't just be working on assignments. You need to be creating all your own stuff while you're here too. So anyway, I don't want to dominate the mic too much.
No, that's okay. So does anybody else have any ideas about where your ideas come from, or any input on where your ideas come from? Yes?
Reading or watching?
Oh, yeah. Reading and watching movies, playing video games. My students say that all the time, and I'm telling them, yeah, but if you're going to play video games for 4 hours and write for 4 hours. Yes, sir. Cooking. Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Because it's a meditation.
Are you a good cook? Oh my gosh, you should invite us over. Anybody else have any ideas? I mean, yes. Okay, so when you listen to music, what do you listen to? What genre? Really? See, I can't do that. I can only listen to music that doesn't have lyrics. I don't know why. But otherwise, I love music too. Yeah.
I think also too, you probably pick certain types of music depending on the mood you're in or what you want to evoke. I had a book a few years ago. There's a lot of fight scenes in it. So I would listen to like really driving heavy metal while I was writing those scenes. But if you're going to have a quiet, tender moment, it's probably not going to work. So a lot of inspiration from music for sure.
I cry while I jog because I'm listening to music. And you know how certain songs make you commune with the souls of the people you love? And I'll just stop running because I'll hear something in my head and I'll just start crying because the song will trigger something else, and that's where the ideas come from. And people run by me and they think I'm crazy, but I don't care. I unplug and I jog and I listen to music and I watch the movie over and over in my head. That's another thing, guys. 90% of writing a movie is watching it over and over and over in your head. Do not rush this step. Trust me. Okay? Watch it in your head, then go home and write what you saw. Don't just start writing down
dialogue.
Right. Don't do that. Okay?
Yeah.
Watch the movie in your head. Then I would skid home and then really quickly type what I saw and heard. I took dictation. And it works.
So,
I would love to share where some of our online audience gets their ideas from.
Awesome.
We have some that just like watching the window outside of their car while they're driving. Others use music, as most of you had said before, other movies, history, video games. Let's see what else. And then just random things like real life, like you were saying earlier, real life, using your family, different things like that. But that's where they get all their ideas from.
You know, that's so true, too, because I like to ride bikes, and I was at the Cape Canaveral seashore, and I was riding my bike, and there's this ghost town there called Eldora. I don't know if anybody's been there before. But there was like 50 people that lived in Eldora in the 1860s, I think. And there's like a house there that was like a trading post. And that gave me an idea of a book that I wanted to write. And suddenly I'm writing historical fiction. And I have never written historical fiction before, but it was an idea that inspired me. And it's been really a pleasure for me to work on it. I don't know when I'm ever going to finish it, but I still work on it occasionally. And it's something that's outside of my wheelhouse. So once you get a good idea, you got to go for it. Just make sure you write it down so you don't forget it, okay? I want to ask Tom, how do you know it's a good idea?
I think that it's a good time to sort of transition
Yeah.
into that part of the talk, right? So we talk a lot about generating ideas, and my last thought on that is if you're reading something, an article, news, whatever, just ask the question, what if or why? And you can usually kind of generate a story out of that as well, right? But for those here and hello to those online as well or watching, right? A good idea means something that someone is going to publish or put on a screen or produce, etc. So you might have a great idea. I've got lots of them. None of them will ever make anybody $1, so they just stay in the drawer making noise, I guess, until I can crack that code. But Carol, you've been involved with the Florida Film Festival for a long time, and for most filmmakers, your first stop is going to be entering a film into a film festival, and there's certainly going to be things that are going to work out for you better, right? Especially when you're first starting out, than when you have a relatively large amount of success, and then you can start pitching really crazy, outrageous projects. But when you're first starting out, you got to be pretty ground level, right? So how's that work? Microphone.
You guys are right here, I know, but I feel like I'm too loud. I've been choosing narrative features for Florida Film Festival for 15 years. I was on the shorts committee. Professor Ramsey is on docs. A lot of the teachers in our program work at Florida Film Festival. And over the years of choosing features, I have learned character is everything. Character is everything, especially in indie films when there's not a lot of special effects and not a lot of big budgets. Okay, character. The indie films that get into Florida Film Festival are character-driven. Okay, basically, plot is just what happens. If you have a character that we love, we're going to watch him do anything. Okay, and when that character takes life and starts showing us the way, so the indie world is full of character-driven stories because there's no money. You shoot what you can, and they usually start as shorts. Okay, last year, it was the year before last, we had, and Nolani was there, it was with Crush the Skull. We had so many narrative feature directors whose shorts had screened at Florida Film Festival 2 and 3 years before that we ended up having a panel of all these feature filmmakers, and it was called From Shorts to Features. And they spoke about how shooting their short film was their calling card. You don't have to shoot a feature. You shoot a short, and you get it into a festival, and somebody loves it, they might pay you to turn it into the feature, and that's what happened with all of these guys. So I tend to think small. Don't write anything you can't pay for. Don't recreate Lord of the Rings. Character-driven, small cast, few locations, keep it simple, all character-driven. If we like that guy, we'll watch it. And I'll tell you, you only get a few minutes to get in that festival. We get 400 features, and I have to pick 10. We hit play, and there's the committee. We'll know in 1 minute if that film is getting in. 1 minute. And usually the other two guys will just get up, they'll zero it out, and I'm the one that stays, and I watch it for 20. I have to at least watch for 20. And they'll get mad at me. They're like, Carol, is there any way this is getting in? And I'm like, no, but I want to be able to tell them why. You know what I mean? I can tell you how to get your movie in the garbage in 1 minute at Florida Film Festival, and it's sad. Okay, but
What are the ideas that don't work at the festival then?
I got to take this away from you.
I don't even need. Oh my goodness. First of all, enter as late as you can. Okay, indie films are getting shorter and shorter and shorter. All right, enter as late as you can, get out as soon as you can. So don't start.
You mean with the story?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Don't
the first
start
event.
with an alarm clock.
Yeah.
No alarm clocks.
Yeah.
No alarm clocks. We
Yeah.
have a tally at the film festival. Every time we put a movie in and you hear the alarm clock go,
Yeah.
you just go, oh my God.
Yeah,
and we add it
my
to the
students aren't
tally.
allowed to do that in my class. at
Writers
all.
like to start at the beginning.
Yeah.
But if that alarm clock is the first thing in a movie and the guy waking up, and then he goes to the bathroom, and then he gets dressed, and he goes down to the kitchen, and he makes his breakfast, and then he gets in the car, so there's already 5 locations, and then he gets to work, and it starts at work, then start it in the office. We don't have to watch him. Unless that alarm goes off and the ceiling falls on him, okay? Don't start too soon. And get out as soon as you can. End your scenes on a great line of dialogue or a look, no chit-chat. Don't keep your scenes going with like, okay, goodbye, all right, I'll call you later, okay, goodbye, okay. No chit-chat.
Pleasantries.
Just
That's
get
what I call
out.
it.
Just get out, in and out. So that's the advice I give to
There's
my
only one
students.
film where the getting ready for work thing was good, and that was Pee-wee's Big Adventure. So
It's a whole
you know,
different,
that's the
exactly.
only
Unless
time
you're
I've
Pee-wee
ever
Herman.
seen it actually
No.
work.
Can I ask you guys a question, and you guys out there too? Do you guys think that genre is important? And let's say short film or feature film. Is genre important?
Well, genre certainly has really elevated over the last few years. I teach a world building class. Some of my current students are here and recent ones too, which is really good to see. And they're allowed to build any kind of world that they want. And certainly when you see things like Game of Thrones being this, premier product, for HBO and some other things, it can certainly be alluring, but if you are starting out, if you are going out in the market as a writer, director, and unless you have serious financing, it's not going to look good.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't
don't
look
try that.
good, unless you're doing that on purpose
Right.
for comedic effect, you're not going to gain
Right.
any traction. Maybe in publishing and in fiction, genre's a lot easier because you don't have a budget necessarily. You can do space battles and war fields with tens of thousands of soldiers. That's fine because you just have to describe it. But if you're going to actually make something, you need to have the resources. So I think it's really important that when you're starting out, if you do want to be that writer, filmmaker, write things that you can absolutely make, right? Don't let your imagination exceed your grasp.
Right.
For now. I'm not saying to limit yourself creatively. Luc Besson, who someone in here knows pretty well, he wrote a script called Valerian, which he sat on for 20 years, and you may have seen it a couple years ago. It's a big CGI sci-fi movie, but that wasn't going to be his first project. He needed ground level things with real world settings and things like that. So, and also too, Full Sail's a little bit of a bubble. We really love genre here. A lot of my students love genre, and they love anime, and they love, a lot of these things, and that's totally cool. But the market does not reflect our passions here necessarily. Crime, true crime, police shows, police stories, courtroom stuff, hospital stuff. These are the things that are highly prevalent and highly available. My father read 3 books a week. None of them had a dragon on it, okay? But that doesn't mean that those stories aren't viable. I would just say, especially for scripts and for filmmaking, you might want to not quite dive too deep into genre if you're talking science fiction and fantasy.
So another thing is that with short films, and that's usually how filmmakers start out, is making short films, anything from 2 minutes to 20 minutes, really. Try to think about what locations you have access to. does your dad own a bar? Write the film that takes place in a bar because you know you're going to get that location for free. Your friends are all going to work for you for free. Okay, you can shoot it with your iPhone if you have to. But most short films don't cost more than $1,000 a minute. And where are you going to get the money to get all of those props? Where are you going to get the money for the wardrobe, for the food, the pizza that you got to buy to pay the crew? Because, an army marches on their stomach. You got to feed your crews.
The entrance fees for the festivals.
Oh, yeah, the entrance
and
fees.
promotion. That's where half of that money is really going, right?
Yeah, so it's almost when you write an idea, you also have to produce it at the same time. So become a producer and say, how can I do this myself without having to sell it to somebody else? How can I make it myself? That's what the Blair Witch Boys did. That's what Robert Rodriguez did with his first movie, El Mariachi, which he made for $8,000. And his big decision making that movie was if he was going to spend $500 on a bathtub. And he said, yeah, I do. I'm going to spend it because it's the most important scene in the movie. So that's what you got to work with, Make it happen. You don't want your script to live in your computer. You want it to be produced. So what about...
And remember word economy, guys. Not just budget. Okay? Scripts are getting shorter and shorter and shorter. We're getting features submitted that are 71 minutes. There's no more 2-hour films. So keep that in mind. A short is a short, okay? And we would rather have 2 5-minute shorts than, 1 10-minute. So word economy is everything. Every word costs money. Every line costs money. And when Tom was saying that he was a journalist, I started out that way. I have a degree in journalism, and I wrote for magazines, and they hire you by the word. I need 500 words. And while it wasn't the most exciting work that I wrote, it taught me how to say things in as few words as possible. Okay, screenwriting is the same way. You wrestle with words until it hurts to say things in as few words as possible. Okay, because every word costs money because 1 page is 1 minute. So word economy is everything.
Yeah.
And cost, that affects cost. I used to get paid to pull up scripts. They call it pulling up. Nickelodeon would give me a 2-hour film, 120 pages, and tell me to pull it up to 90 in 2 hours. And I would just start pulling it up. I wouldn't even think about it. There's these little tricks that we'd play, and I pulled up the Good Burger movie from 2 hours to 90 minutes, and think of, the money that you save. Okay, if you're James Cameron, 1 page could be $10 million. Egomaniac that he is. I'm just saying that is.
But we love
save
James
money.
Cameron. Nothing against James Cameron.
Whatever.
Aliens is a fine film.
Whatever.
It's my favorite in the
Titanic.
franchise.
The message he gives to students is you could be successful too if you have $400 million. Bite me, okay? You don't need James Cameron's an egomaniac. Whatever.
Another thing too to respond to. Well, a lot of the auteurs are, right? How do you know it's a good idea is also tell everyone you know your idea for your script. Everyone. Spoilers, the twists are what sell the idea,
Have a table read.
And all that. And don't be afraid of having your idea stolen because you were putting it out there a lot.
So ridiculous.
They would much rather option you and lock that idea down, maybe take it away from you, but at least give you a little money for it, than just outright steal it because,
the more
was
people
it
you show.
Art Buchwald coming to America? He just mentioned something off the side at a coffee, like a little cocktail party or whatever. So if you get good response for the idea, if people say, oh, I would play that game, I would watch that, I would read that, then you know that you probably have an idea that has some legs to it, right? My students propose all kinds of wacky projects every month in my class, right? I was just using the example of it was an animated show about a bunch of owls who live in a tree and listen to EDM, right? So electronic dance music for those, right? What do I know? I didn't think karaoke would work in the U.S., right? I forgot about alcohol. It makes everyone so much braver, right? I thought nobody likes public speaking. Why would they sing? But of course, right? I can't tell you whether or not that idea is going to work. You can dial up all kinds of things that should not work but have an audience and do. So, but I would test it. I would test it with as many people as you can and gauge the response. And if you're really, really in love with it, not really ready to let it go, just start twiddling the knobs a little bit on the idea and keep coming back. Eventually, if they're your friends, they'll still listen to you and offer their thoughts. But that's another little thing there.
So Robert McKee, who is my script writing guru, says that you should take your idea to the extreme of the extreme. And that means you don't settle on the first idea, okay? You come up with 10 ideas, and then that 10th idea that you like, you take that idea even further. And that's where the area you're gonna be that it's a fresh idea. Don't rehash other ideas you see. Don't watch something and say, oh, I'm going to rewrite that. Don't do that because we've seen it. It's an old idea. So anybody else have any ideas about how to come up with a good idea? Anybody want to?
Anyone online, maybe?
Anybody?
Any comments?
Anybody? Comments, questions? Yes.
I found that if somebody asks you about an idea that you told them previously, if they're like, oh, what did you ever do with that? Then that's probably an idea you should pursue. You should get it done.
Right. So if somebody remembers an idea that you've pitched them and then they ask you about the idea, they remembered it. That's a good thing. That's a really good thing.
That's a really
Great
good
point.
example because I've got something sitting with a publisher for a few months now, which is making me kind of anxious. But anyway, I had pitched an idea for a book like 4 years ago at a conference in a workshop for pitching, right? And everyone in the room liked it except for the guy who was running it, who was the publisher I was trying to impress. So I was kind of dejected by that, He's like, it's a good idea, everybody likes it, but I don't publish that kind of stuff. So anyway, but a few years later, I'm at another writing conference, and I run into somebody who was in that workshop and now has a publishing company of his own. And he says, did you ever do anything with that idea? And so now we've got something sitting with them that we're
I
waiting
get asked
for.
about
So
the
right to
wicker.
what Matt said.
Do you want to give us some input?
Oh yeah, I was just going to say that the stories that stick with you also, or the ideas that stick with you, usually are important.
Yeah.
Ones that kind of nibble at the back of your subconscious, sometimes for months, years even. And they can come from the weirdest places. Like, story I...
You want to take this here?
Why, sure.
Joshua.
Another professor
Dr.
here
Begley.
in the creative writing program.
Hi. Thank
We
you,
love
Noel.
Joshua.
What do you teach, Dr.
What do you
Bagley?
teach, Dr.
What do you
Bagley?
teach?
Who we love.
Now I teach horror, mystery, and suspense.
Yay.
Woo. I am the fun class. I mean, it's always the fun class, even when I'm teaching something else. Why am I taking over? I'm sorry. So I was just going to say, and this goes along with what, Carol, you were saying before about observing. There's a story that I had published last year called Watch Children that it came about just because I was living in Pennsylvania, and there was these signs that said, "Watch Children." And that's not a phrasing I was accustomed to. Basically it's saying, watch out, there are children here.
Watch children.
Watch children. And so that phrasing stuck in my head, and I kept going, watch children, watch children. Children who are made out of watches, children, like all the different permutations came and went in my head. And 7 or 8 years later, I finally figured out the story, and I wrote it. And it was just one of those things, it just stuck with me. I didn't even write it down. It's just in my subconscious. And it came out okay, I guess, hopefully. Anyway, so pay attention, like Magnum PI says, pay attention to your little voice. Your little voice will guide you pretty well. usually.
Google Magnum PI.
Beautiful, Joshua.
About 80% of the room.
I know who Magnum PI is. I used to work for the creator. Yeah, I did. Okay, so let's see. Let's go on to the next one. Okay. We've talked about, what ideas get made into films?
The
Okay?
inexpensive ones.
We've talked about this already a little bit, but we know that cost is a factor. Write something you can shoot for nothing while you're learning how to make movies, okay? And that's probably the best tip that we can impart today, is that you don't want to spend a lot of money on your first film because you are going to screw up. So you don't want to screw up and lose a lot of money, okay? So your first film, make it for no money, okay, right? Yeah, and I'll tell you right now, the sound is going to be bad. So the best tip I can give you there is to hire somebody that really knows how to do sound, okay, right?
Audio is huge.
Yeah.
It can even look okay as long as it sounds great.
Yeah, the sound, and yeah, as long as it,
Audio
you know,
is the reason why a lot of films don't get into Florida.
yeah, it's the
Spend
sound.
the money on audio if you have to,
Yeah.
or learn.
Yeah, but you know, make something for cheap. Also, I want to talk about one more thing. The rating, G-rated films are much more successful than anything above G-rated films. So there is nothing wrong with making a film that the entire family can see. And I know you guys want to be edgy and do all that kind of stuff, but the G-rated films are the ones that make the money, right, guys?
I like to be edgy, so don't.
I
don't do
know.
that.
Well,
to add to that, this is like flip advice, but I like to give it, which is write a holiday story.
Yeah.
Write a holiday film, because if people like it, it'll play every year, and you'll get a nice little revenue stream from that. You know, it's true. It really is true. Nobody has a good Flag Day film, so maybe you can break some territory there. But what were you going to say, Carol?
At the film festival, we get producers. You know, we actually have people show up to watch shorts to see if any of them interest them, and then they'll approach the filmmaker and offer to turn it into a feature. But the three things that they look for in that short, and this is not only the distributors and the studios, the festivals too. Number one is marketability. We've already talked. Is anyone going to want to invest? They don't care. The first thing they're going to ask, do you have a business plan and how much are we going to make? They don't care what the movie's about. Marketability, number one. Who's going to make money? Is anyone going to want to invest? Then creativity. And you think, oh, well, that's easy. No, it's not. Creativity is, what about it is different? It's not enough to be good. It's not enough to be great. It has to be different. You have to ask yourself on every page, what about my character is different from any other character? And the last one they look for, and this is why 90% of films fail at the box office, is structure. Does it make sense? So those are the three things that producers look for in a really good short film. And you think that, oh, well, that's easy. No, it's not. So marketability, structure, and creativity. And we use those words constantly, but structure is ironclad. There's no such thing as decent structure. It's got to be great. It's got to be perfect structure, or it's not going to work. So those are the things that we look for in short films that would make a great feature.
Well, I would say also too, force of will or passion. If we're, what of your ideas get made into films, it is quite a process and so much work to write a novel or to make a film, and it requires gargantuan amount of energy and enthusiasm for it, and also conviction of the vision that you have. So if you are, you know, aspiring writer, director, you know, if you really believe in it and you sacrifice what you've gotten, there's tons of stories of directors' first films, second films, third, whatever, where it was just through the inability to give up on the idea and to see it through is what really made it. If you're talking about the market in the industry, you'd mentioned the G rating. Also, too, there's what? The quadrants, right? So how many different types of audiences would enjoy this film? The more universal the story can be, right? The more eyes are going to want to be on it or read the book or whatever. And that's also, I guess, an idea, you know, a viable idea, is does it have great appeal? And also something else that I tell my students, and I'm sure you do, and you do as well, is that you have to constantly watch the industry that you are striving for. You need to know the trends. Carol mentioned that the scripts are getting shorter, right? that's your cue.
Students don't watch
you know?
movies.
That's
And you
your
have
cue.
to know what's being produced, or else you'll make the same thing. At the film festival, we have to check IndieWire every day to see who sold what to who. Because I don't want to be spending months and months on a screenplay that something just like it sold. You have to know what's out there. Thankfully, we live in a city with one of the biggest film fests in the world. And I make my students volunteer at Florida Film Festival. It changes their lives and it blows their minds. Because they see students and other people doing what they thought they couldn't do. Okay, so the film festival has really, really helped me personally as a filmmaker. And the thing that my idea, you have to want it more than anything. And I will admit that stupid Wicker story, I wanted to write that script more than anything because it was so personal. After I was asked to write it by my friends and family, I realized it was about all the boys in my family. So I wrote it for all the women in my family. So the passion has got to be there, like Tom said. You have to want to write it more than anything. And nothing was going to stop me from writing this script. I pulled over once on I-4 because I was watching the movie in my head and one of the characters said something and I pulled over. And I realized that was that special moment that they talk about where the characters take life and start showing you the way, and I couldn't keep up with the characters. That's when I knew I was onto something, because it wasn't my story. I was just channeling it. So passion is everything.
And know the market.
And
So-
the market.
How many people here are writers? All of you. Yay.
Awesome.
What about you people? What, you didn't raise your hand. Are you a filmmaker? You're filmmakers back there? Yeah? Yeah, okay. So do y'all want to be scriptwriters? Yeah? What do you guys want to be? Anybody else want to be something different besides a scriptwriter? Yeah?
Animation or games or
Yeah.
music.
You know, a story is a story. But when you sit down, after you come up with your idea and you say, this is my story that I'm going to write, you really have to focus on the medium and what is the medium going to be, because writing a short film is different than an indie film, is different than a feature film, is different than a television show. A television is different from Netflix to NBC. You know how it is, right? So you got to know what the medium is and then write for that. Does anybody here have any questions at all that we can answer for you at this time? Hopefully. What about online?
I do have a few questions for you guys. First of all, when it's coming to shorts, I'm finding that a lot of our online viewers are having a struggle with really getting the theme of what they want in such a short film.
Gosh,
have
Carol,
any
do you have any
advice?
advice for them?
Okay. I want a bumper sticker. I'm going to get a tattoo of this, okay? Do not try to squeeze a feature into a short.
Yeah.
Okay? Every one of my students, they have to write 3 log lines, and I say, please, capture a moment, a drive to work, a lunch date. But no, they're recreating Lord of the Rings, and these are feature films, and then they try to squeeze it into a short. Do not do that. Capture a moment. That's the hardest thing. And then the theme, my students are like, there's no way that I could tell a whole story in 5 minutes. Are you kidding me? Of course you can. All of our short films at Florida are average 5 minutes. They're amazing. They have a beginning, a middle, and end. There's 1-minute film festivals. You can tell a whole story in 1 minute. There's a beginning, a middle, and end. And the themes, I don't know, by the theme, do you mean the lesson learned? The themes?
The topics that run through the story,
That, I mean,
that hold it all together.
that should be obvious to me. You know, blood is thicker than water. Money can't buy me love. What lesson are you going to teach the viewer while they're watching this little short? So believe me, you can't. I've had students say, I cannot write a 10-page script. I'm handing in 13 pages. There is no way I could edit out one more word. And just for laughs on a Saturday night, I'll bring it up and cut it down to 8 pages.
I do that all the time.
Oh, yeah, back
I'm
in
like,
my newspaper days, you
please.
turn in an
Ka-ching,
article.
ka-ching, ka-ching. Yeah.
You turn in an article, and the layout person would cut it to fit.
See?
And that's it.
That's it.
So like that's what you lived with was, you know. So you put all the important stuff up front, right? But also to the struggle with the short film, and I think it's true for a short story or flash fiction or whatever else. As the storyteller, as the creative, just ask yourself, what is the one emotional experience, the one emotional note I want this person to have when the story is over. Do I want them to feel hope? Do I want them to feel despair? Do I want them to be shocked, surprised? Is it a call to action? You know, just focus on generating that one emotional effect, and that might help you tell your story. And we have
With the themes in a short, it doesn't have to replace the entire argument. It's just one more voice in the big conversation about that theme. I think that's where students are trying to cram. I want to solve the whole problem in 5 minutes. I'm loud. I'm not loud enough. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Well, Susan, Carol, and Tom, thank you guys so much. We've had so much great interaction with our campus students as well as our online students. It seems like we're going to get some great feedback, which we'll go ahead and forward to your emails. We have a lot of other in-depth questions that our students want.
Does that mean it's over?
We have time
Yeah,
for
it's
about
That's all,
Okay, thank you
folks.
very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank